with devious dungeons, foreboding forests, and the coolest cats. Welcome to the Dark Orb and to episode number 2, which is way overdue, and I'm really sorry about that, of Gamechat. Today's episode is The Imperium's Savage Dragon Forces a Path to the Free Coast, and we'll probably not talk about hardly anything that title is entitled. The title is entitled by an entitling sort of way. Alcohol is flowing, my friends. I
That's good
am
England.
absolutely. My name's Phil, and with me today is my good buddy Zach.
Hey, how's it going? You
How you
alright?
doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm coming from sunny Nottingham and ready to
Sunny
talk some
Nottingham.
games.
Nottingham being one of the many homes of gaming in the UK. It's a good place to be,
Oh yeah, it's the Games Workshop thing, right?
among other things. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What are the
So,
other things? What am I missing out on?
like what?
Well, I don't know.
Cake?
Like, is it? No, but you're saying that Nottingham's the home of gaming. I only moved here about 4 years ago, so I knew about the Games Workshop stuff. But like, is there other stuff that's I'm missing
Yeah,
out on?
probably. I mean, Games Workshop. There's other things as well.
Is there?
Yeah, there
Right.
is.
I'll keep my
Like
eyes open.
you've got the that weird tour. That's a great game. The tour of the underground tour on the second floor of the shopping centre that
Oh
goes.
yeah, the caverns.
Yeah, that's really weird. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it can't be a cavern. I'm on the second
Yeah.
floor.
Yeah. And they got all those people LARPing that don't want to have to LARP but have to do it for a job.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Hey, Sandro, good to see you, my friend. So, yeah, it has been a really long time since we did a game chat episode. Unfortunately, Paul, my friend, couldn't be here as well due to basically, among other things, he's a really busy guy and this is quite late and he has very early starts. So, hopefully, he'll be with us next time. Got quite a few things to talk about. First of all, let's have a little bit of a talk about the state of expos and exhibitions and conventions in the UK this year. So obviously we've had quite a lot of disappointment with people getting kind of sick, and therefore a lot of our favourite events have been cancelled or postponed or have gone online. And the big one that's coming up in the UK that happens every year that I certainly make every attempt to go to, and was kind of disappointed. Kind of disappointed is an understatement. Really disappointed that we couldn't meet up for is Dragon Meet. So Dragon Meet is actually going to be online this year, and that's really good. The website is dragonmeet.co.uk, and they've got quite a lot of things lined up, even though it's effectively a one-man band. The wonderful John Dodd pretty much does all of it. He also organises a lot of other events. There are quite a few conventions in the UK that he either single-handedly runs or has a large amount to do with. He also runs all the RPG stuff at UK Games Expo. Yeah, he's
I was going to say I recognize the name. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He's the force of nature that you'll always see at Dragon Meet.
It's a busy guy.
Amazing guy, wonderful guy. Yeah, he's doing it online this year. Tickets are available on the website. There are games that I think are all selling out. RPG games have sold out quite a lot, but there are seminars as well, and I believe there's also a raffle. Lots of stuff being done for charity. I really recommend if you've got nothing else to do this weekend, then you should certainly sign up for it. And if you've got things to do this weekend, then number one, are you sure? Are you really sure? Should you
I was
have
going to have a
things to do
party,
this
you
weekend?
know?
Exactly. I think you need to cancel everything you're doing and jump onto Dragon Meet. Now, there is also Modifius Modicon. Modcon. Modifius basically run or contribute to Dragon Meet. So when that's actually a physical event, I think they basically do like half of it or so. They're doing their own thing this weekend. I know they're trying really, really carefully not to encroach too much on the Dragon Meat space, but they are basically running things concurrently. That starts tomorrow, I think, and it's like a 4-day thing, whereas Dragon Meat is generally just a 1 day.
And was
Not
this a
gonna.
Divius thing? Is this online as well?
It is, yeah.
Right,
They've got
right,
some
okay.
interesting stuff, like they've got Guy from How to Be a Great GM, who's really.
Is that the Kobold book? The Kobold Press
Uh,
book? The How to Be a Great GM?
no, maybe there's a book as well. I think he's one of those weird Antipodean guys, so you don't want to do anything with him.
Right,
Don't
that
trust
makes
the
sense.
Australians, my
Yeah.
friend. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
they've
far
got
too
him
true.
doing some seminar stuff, um, and again, they've got a whole load of games, a whole load of other events on. Obviously, they've got a bit more financial backing and more hands on deck, I guess, than Dragon Meat. So I'll be honest, for my money, I would rather be putting my efforts into supporting Dragon Meat just because so much work goes into that, and they're such a small team that I think they really need our love. And I know they're having some, challenges at the moment. The guys who are running that, so just because it's hard work, and it's even harder when you're doing stuff online because ultimately, no matter how many people make promises, not everyone can necessarily fulfill them all the time, and it's
Well,
really
it's a
easy
different
to.
game. It's a different style of running, right? Like it's like all different challenges. All like being able to get all your assets up and
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff. The prep is different, and running is different as well. If you get
yeah,
yourself into a game where it's like everyone's muted, and it just
yeah.
becomes really difficult as a GM to sort of get everyone engaged and talking and all that kind of stuff.
Tell you what I really miss, and hi, Super Beast, by the way. I agree, Free League are awesome, and I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about Twilight 2000 later on. Only because, I'll be honest, I haven't gotten around to reading the alpha for it yet. But yeah, what I really miss about running a game around the table is actually the eye contact, because it's so difficult. Uh, it's so true. Hang on a minute. There you go, Paul. Good to see you, Paul, my friend. Paul's written an amazing RPG which just went through Kickstarter called Weird Space. It's really fun.
Cool.
Eye contact, yeah. So when you've got people around the table, directing your dialogue at one person and everyone knowing who you're talking to without you having to preface it with their name and tell everyone else to shut up. I mean, you sometimes still
Yeah.
need to do that anyway, but it's a lot more challenging on communication skills.
Yeah, it's hard to have a presence at the like because I mean as a GM generally that sort of GM that's is like I'm directing the action sort of thing like and I'll be looking around to make sure that like no one's being left out and all that kind of stuff, and it's really hard to do that when everyone's on a completely even playing field. Like you see some GMs, they like to stand up while they're GMing and stuff because that like it helps them to, because you kind of need to be the center of attention. I mean, it's not just an ego thing, right? Like, in order to be
Right,
able to keep the game flowing, you need to have like an elevated position. You know what I mean? So that you can be talking to everyone at the same time, and they can all talk to you. You know?
right. Exactly that. So, yeah, if you're free on Saturday, check out Dragon Meat, please. As I said, they've got seminars. There's a podcast zone, so there are some podcasters who are presenting or doing actual plays and things like that. The games are selling pretty quickly. There aren't a huge number of role playing games that are being hosted, but they are, as a result, they are going pretty quickly. And yeah, they've got a charity auction. I'm not too sure which charity that is. Unfortunately, there's maybe a little bit of a lack of detail on the website this year. No criticism of John. He and the team are doing the best they can, and I'm hoping that we might even be able to sneak John on later, so he can like do a double plug. If double plug, that sounds so wrong. If he's around,
Before you said that.
I was thinking it sounded perfectly appropriate. We'll
It's
have
the
to ask
Queen's
John about his
English.
double plug later on. And yeah, so that's Dragon Meat. UK Games Expo have announced that they are planning to do something next year, which is good. That's always a really good start. They're currently got a double model going on at the moment in that they're deciding, well, they're first of all, they're doing it from June the 4th, the weekend of June the 4th, which is great because my birthday's on June the 3rd and I'm going to be at the bar on the Thursday evening. I'll see you there, Zach. And everyone else. It was my 40th this year, but we're claiming it didn't happen. So it's my 40th next year at Games Expo.
Everyone gets a leap year. Yeah,
Yeah,
on
exactly.
birthdays for this year.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's going to be Friday the 4th through to Sunday the 6th, 7th, whatever it is. I don't know. I'm drinking. And go on.
And the plans are effectively that it is like it's either live or it's live, basically, right? Like
Pretty
there
much.
is
So
no
far, this
online
is
option.
great. I'm really liking
Yeah,
this. I mean,
yeah.
okay, it might end up going that way anyway. It's possible. But the plans are basically either we're going to do our best to do it as we did before, and if we need to, we might reduce the head count, but we hope we don't have to do that. Or we're going to do a slightly socially distanced one, in which case we are going to spread the tables out, let you create bubbles for people to play in effectively, and then I guess the onus is on you to make sure that the people that you're playing a game with are being sensible and haven't been.
I guess that means you kind of like make a table, and rather than like in normal expos, you'll like play with different people in every game. You'll
Right.
probably like play with one table every time you go to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like maybe that's
exactly.
the way they could do it.
Exactly, which I think is fine, but I guess the downside to that is you can kind of do that at home.
Yeah, but the thing is, you could do that with strangers and just kind of be like, okay, yeah, let's all just like meet each other
Yeah.
and we're just going to make a table. And then what's cool as well is you might be able to like, you could make like a campaign across the entire, expo
fun.
where you all play together, and you could play like a sliders style, campaign or something where
That
you're
would be
like
really
in
awesome.
different dimensions doing different things every time. It'd be
All
amazing.
those in favour of crumpets and tea say aye. Aye. I like the idea of that. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Games Expo. That's what they're planning on doing, and I'm kind of pleased that I'm very pleased that they're looking to do that.
So you were a fan of no online UK Games Expo this year, like because they took a pretty hard stand, like it's live or it's nothing.
I think they might change their mind if things don't go well. I mean, obviously we've now got the first vaccine going on, and hopefully the vaccine trials will have been. I have every faith in that. Yeah, I have every faith in actually the medical industry that they will have done. It's pretty much exactly the same level of competency that they would have done for anything else. The difference is that there are far larger numbers of people taking the vaccine, or there will be, I would presume. So as a result, not necessarily the probability of people getting, side effects or whatever. That's not going to change. If you've got a 1 in 100 chance of something happening to you, then it's a 1 in 100 chance, for example. But if 4.8 billion people take the vaccine, then that 1 in 100 is still a lot of people.
You're harshing my
So
vibe here, Phil. You know, I was just talking about whether you think it should go online or not.
yeah, maybe.
I mean, how
I'm
have you
deeply
been dealing with
interested in all of this sort of stuff. So
how have you been dealing with all the online gaming this year? Like are you a
I did a
fan?
lot less. I mean, I wasn't. Home games weren't that numerous anyway. We were basically. I ran a game of Imperium, which we're still playing at the same frequency. Then some really cool people I know run a Dungeon Crawl Classics thing in Loughborough that we're going to probably every couple of months, I guess. A couple of really good GMs up there.
Yeah, good looking ones too.
Yeah, yeah, Australians
Know what I'm saying? Yeah.
and Bruce.
It's funny that the GM who is an Australian is called Bruce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have an Australian spotted python called Bruce.
Oh really?
Just thought I'd tell you that, just because, it's important to
I
know.
might I might have known him. You know?
You
You
could have
never
done,
know.
yeah. But yeah, so obviously a bit of expose there that I know Zach from Dungeon Crawl Classics, where he's a very good judge. Lots of fun had there. Hopefully that'll all start up if you're in the Loughborough area. Once the world unbreaks, then Dungeon Crawl Classics is one of my very favourite systems.
It's
Least of
only,
gone.
only system you get to piss on a snow van, right?
Yeah, that's Mr. Beatty Salt, David Beatty Salt, who is the author of Dark Trails RPG, which is a DCC Weird West thing that might actually appear one day. He's just adding so much stuff to that; it's crazy. So yeah, I pissed on a snowman in Zach's game. In
I
the
had to
game,
work out.
not in person.
I had to work out what urine damage was. That was
It
a
was
hard one
taking
to
a
get
piss,
on the
wasn't
fly.
Well, no, the fly was gone. That was the whole point. Yeah.
Oh, stop it! You're killing me over
Oh,
here.
those were the days. I mean, that
Yeah.
was that last year? Or was that the beginning of this year? I've got no idea.
Well, it
I
was a Christmas
genuinely don't
event.
know.
Yeah, it was a Christmas adventure last year because it was a Christmas
Jeez,
adventure.
so it was a year
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah.
Gosh.
There you go.
Yeah.
What else is going on in the world of games?
Well, the interesting thing that has caught my attention is with these guys. So, Wizards of the Coast. So, there's a couple of things here. First of all, I'm going to start off with the really kind of speculative and potential downer news. There's and I'm going to also credit where these what the sources are. So, ICV2 speculating that perhaps Wizards are being lined up to be sold by Hasbro. There's a couple of reasons for this, and they're kind of compelling, if I'm honest. So the first thing that they've kind of picked up on is that Hasbro are kind of cleaning up the license. So there's a lot of third-party agreements, for example, with Dragonlance and with Gale Force 9, and some, I presume, some other companies where they've basically just not renewed the licenses or they've cancelled things that are happening at the moment. So that was an interesting first observation. Also, kind of speculation that maybe Hasbro didn't really want the D&D license in the first place, and they were more interested in things like Pokemon back at the time when they bought Wizards of the Coast back in the late 90s. Also, it was noticed that... Go on, sorry.
Magic the Gathering's only gotten stronger since they took it over as well, so
Yeah,
it's obvious
yeah,
they
that's true.
put some more money into that.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess also that makes it ripe for purchase. And I kind of think Hasbro would be silly to sell the license or sell the company, to be honest with you. But it depends on what their wider ambitions are. Because another thing that was picked up was that some of those board games that were Wizards properties have been moved up to, was it Avalon Hill, which is one of the
All right.
parent. Yeah, so Avalon Hill moved to Hasbro, and some of those board game properties have gone upwards. Like Hero Quest, for example, has gone up into the Avalon Hill umbrella, not from Wizards, but
The other thing is that maybe Hasbro are predicting a peak with D&D. I mean, because the thing is that role playing games over the course of, let's say, probably the last like 5-6 years are starting to go through a similar sort of I don't want to call it a renaissance, and I don't really want to call it a normalization either. But there has been a huge influx of people that have been coming into the hobby through D&D, and almost
it's been
immediately
massively destigmatized, hasn't it?
yeah. But then what happens with a lot of them is once D&D becomes destigmatized, they almost immediately find out that D&D is probably not even the best. You know, like it's really good. You could never take away from that. But it's like there are other things out there that are really cool. And people are, because I remember when I first came into the hobby, I was saying to people, I want to play D&D, and they're like, oh, have you looked around? And I'm like, yeah, but I just kind of want to play D&D because it's D&D, right? But I think that if I was coming in now, I would have a completely different sort of view of it because I would be aware of more than just D&D,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've said this a few times in the stream before, but I had the opposite input in that D&D was one of the last types of games one of the last systems that I played. So I started with Vampire in the
All
early
right.
90s. And then I did the whole University Game Society and all that sort of stuff, then dropped out of uni and then stuck around going to uni anyway just to play the games because that's about the only cool thing to do at that point in time unless you really want to spend all your time in the pubs. Um, and throughout that whole time, I played pretty much exclusively World of Darkness. Not because that's what I wanted to play necessarily, but because actually that's what was in. And it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of hard to play anything other than a World of Darkness game in the late 90s in
Yeah.
universities in the UK. Um, we started, my friend Kostas started, I think it was a D&D third edition, might have been second. We got as far as character creation, and then he had to go home, back home to Greece, and then when he came back, that kind of had come off the boil, if you know what I mean, and we never got really into it. So it was only about 4 years ago that I actually played D&D for the first time. That was fifth edition, obviously,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's fine. That's kind of my
The
opinion
thing
of
is,
D&D. It's fine.
I think if you didn't play D&D first, what you'd probably find is you came like if you come to D&D after having experienced a whole heap of other systems,
Yeah,
really you just it's kind of vanilla, which is cool because you can
yeah,
tell some cool stories. If everyone knows the rules of the world, like then you can tell some cool stories because
yeah.
everyone kind of follows the rules and that makes for a more like congruent story and all that kind of stuff. But if you're looking for like something exciting off the wall, anything could happen. I don't like D&D is not really the system you go to play, right?
Not if you play it rules as written. Then it becomes, because I think it's derived, well, because I know it's originally derived from wargaming,
Mm-hmm.
it has that very rigid approach of you need a specific skill to do anything. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
have that skill, then you're kind of stuffed to an extent. And there are other games that do something similar, and we'll talk about Savage Worlds later on. We've just started looking at that as a system, and it's kind of similar in that you kind of expected to at least have the skill that is required to do the thing you're going to do, but it still feels more narrative driven. And most of the games that I play are heavily narrative driven to the extent that you have your attributes and you can basically do anything you want with those attributes. And I totally understand that for people who play something like D&D, where that feels a bit like it's watered down. Like, how come the same skill that you need to use for hitting someone over the head is the same one that you use for running really fast or something like that? There
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't necessarily be the same,
I
the
think
same
the thing
skills
I
for
think
that.
the thing about 5e for me, and don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing 5e here, right? I'm,
No,
I'm
me either.
playing in a 5e campaign at the moment.
Hmm.
I'm having a great time playing it. It's more about the people around the table than it is about the system anyway.
Yeah,
But 5e just kind of it feels a bit like a resource management game. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Even if
yeah,
even if you don't include encumbrance, there's still just like, oh, I've got three spell slots, and then after spent all my three spell slots, well, now I'm just kind of a guy in a robe.
yeah.
Like that's
And
it.
actually, until you have a nap, you're kind of stuffed. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. And I'd never looked at it that way actually. But that is exactly what I hate about Gloomhaven, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Gloomhaven is a card management game. It's
Mm-hmm.
not an RPG in a box, unless that RPG is, as you sort of rightly said, a resource management heavy RPG. And we bought Gloomhaven thinking it was an RPG in a box, and for us, we just don't enjoy it. We're going to end up house ruling it at some point and just rewriting it just so that we can do the story without getting really annoyed. But lots of people
Yeah.
love it. Lots of people love D&D, and you're not wrong to
Yeah. To
have
try and
those
bring the
opinions.
to try and bring the tangent back in a little bit. I mean,
Yeah,
guess what I was saying was is that RPGs are kind of going through the same sort of thing as board games did in the early 2010s, right?
yeah,
There's like you had Will Wheaton and tabletop and all that beginning to normalize everything. And what people found is they came into the hobby and then they bought like Carcassonne or what's that other one I've never played with the thief and
Catan.
Catan. That's the one they get Catan, and then they've bought them, and then they're like, right now what else,
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that
I
maybe
tell you
that's
what,
what Hasbro's seeing.
if I had those as my gateway board games, I think I would never have played board games again. Um,
Yeah,
I
well,
just hate those games. I
a
don't
lot of people
understand them.
like them, right?
But I
A lot
didn't
of people
have,
like them,
again,
right?
I didn't have the induction that way, so I don't understand how those games work, and I have tried. It
Hmm.
just, there's
Hmm.
something missing in my head.
Yeah.
The first game that we really got into when the whole board game renaissance happened, I guess, was Pandemic.
Hmm.
and we got the original version of Zombicide at the same time.
Yeah, nice.
And Zombicide Black
I got both
Plague
of those.
is kind of probably our favorite of those sorts of games. That
Hmm.
and yeah, we're slowly going through Pandemic Legacy Season 2. It's taken us. We bought Pandemic Legacy Season 2 the expo before last because they priced it wrong.
Hmm.
We paid like 40 quid for it,
Yeah.
which is ridiculous. But real life and
Yeah,
you'd think you'd have
my
more
wife
time
and
on
I
it. But
my wife and I are still trying to complete the first campaign that we bought in 2016.
Legacy Season 1,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so
I mean,
good.
I don't really feel like finishing it right now.
No, exactly.
I don't know if I can deal with it.
Well, how far
Yeah.
through it are you?
I don't mean, I don't want to do spoilers for anyone who
No,
hasn't
no, no, no.
played it. Yeah.
But are you like through month wise? Because it's like January to December. June, like
I think we're on our second playthrough, or like our second, like we lost
yeah.
June the last time we played it.
Okay, so are you at the
Yeah.
point now where, because I don't think it's a great spoiler to say that as you progress through the game, that there can be permanent changes to cities on the map. So, are you at a
I've
point
seen.
where a region has started to get a little bit pear shaped? Because we got to a point where
Yeah.
we just stopped bothering in a certain region. I was like, ah, screw 'em.
Yeah, yeah.
They're a lost cause.
Our Australasian region, which makes me feel bad, is a complete write off every game.
You're
There's
just
just
never going to
nothing
go
you can
home
do
now, are
about
you?
it. Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is the exact opposite right now. you know.
Gloomhaven reminded of the wait when people brought it to bring a buy. Yep, absolutely. It's a heavy, heavy game. We bought it. We bought the broken token organizer for it as well. So our copy is really heavy and in almost mint condition. Paul says with D&D, I'm playing a total gladiator that's lost its nerve. No specific dice roll stat on where I've allowed me to lose my cool in stressful situations. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it does call for good role play. If you're in a position where you can role play a game, at least role play that sort of disadvantage without it having to be told to you exactly what the penalty is and stuff, then great. But it's not really designed for, or I guess that sort of level of role play is not really expected in a D&D game, even though it's absolutely welcomed.
Yeah, I'm playing in the D campaign at the moment. I've got this like orb thing stuck in my arm that's like
Is it a dark orb,
for
Zach?
it's a dark orb in my arm,
Wasn't me.
there's this like demon god thing like slowly taking me over. I was formerly
Definitely
neutral
wasn't
good,
me.
and yeah, but I've made up like because I don't massively like PvP, but I massively
No.
like cool roleplay. And
Yeah,
but this
same.
whole thing was supposed to like make me turn against the party. So we made up this like mechanic where I do like will saves wisdom saves.
Yeah.
Every now and again, just to see whether I'm able to fight off my urges to fight the party, and that dynamic has made things like pretty cool. But it's not hard to make a table, right? I just feel
Yeah.
like D&D could do with some more tables.
Yeah, but you are coming from a position of bias there, I think. I mean, I don't know if
I
any
love
of our
tables.
viewers today have ever opened the DCC core rulebook, but basically half of it is just
Yeah,
tables. I'm not
it's like
complaining. I think it's
75% tables. Yeah,
awesome. I mean, you
yeah,
look at the book, and for example, DCC. This is Aaron's copy. Look how thick that
beautiful.
is.
Hmm.
And just trying to see where the tables probably start at. Yeah, the tables start there. That's where magic is in this book.
And it's got a tiny little adventure at the back of it, and then that's about it. All the rest is magic.
Yeah, yeah. The adventure is
Like 10 pages
that's
long at the
Portal in here.
most.
There's the adventure.
Yeah.
And this is a heavy book as well. The only real criticism I have of Goodman Games, who are the publishers of this, is that their shipping really sucks. Really,
Oh
really
yeah.
sucks. And part
Yeah.
of that is because they keep making really heavy things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't always ring true because I wanted to buy one of their new dice sets for $29.99 and they wanted to charge me $32 in shipping. But if I bought the half pound of dice, which is considerably more than 7 dice, it would have cost me $24 in shipping. So it doesn't always scale.
They got to start sending things to Bruce, and he can send them out from here.
Yeah, and I
You
think
know.
he even volunteered to do that at one point. Because I can't imagine, at least at the moment, the volume's probably not that huge.
Yeah.
So, what else we got in the comments? Paul says, playing Pandemic in this pandemic? Well, we would do, but we haven't got the energy because we're too busy being pandemicized. Um, yeah, agreed. Adding character motivation and flaws helps with D&D, but there are other systems to do it better. Yeah,
But see, the thing is, they've got all those ideals and bonds and flaws and all that stuff, and that's cool. It's
yeah,
great because it makes you think about your character. But you do that at character creation, and you never look at them again. you know,
it's true.
unless
It's true.
every now and again, you know, if you get in an argument with another player or something, you're like, oh well, my character would do it. Look at these bonds and flaws.
So, speaking of D&D, and
Yeah.
Paul says, how big is the biggest table? Depends how large you print it. D&D have got some holiday specials on. And in the interest of fairness, let's just have a quick look through those. So, 4th of December, Comic Relief, which is a great charity here in the UK and I guess now abroad. They're doing a D&D thing on Twitch with some of UK's most average comedians.
Oh, James Ancaster is funny.
I'm not a fan. I
Oh,
prefer
really?
Sally Phillips to James Acaster. And
Really?
I mean, Phil Wang's not bad. He spent the entirety of Taskmaster in a yellow jumpsuit, if I recall correctly, so that was quite funny. The first one of these, though, was pretty good. 40
Hmm.
Stories of Adventure. So they're doing quite a lot. Again, so, you know, more comedians on Twitch. Sophie Duker, I think, is really funny. Um, Acquisitions Incorporated.
Oh, they're doing another Acquisitions
Yeah,
Incorporated. I love these guys. They're so funny. Although only Jerry Hawkins appears from the original cast, so
right.
there's that.
And then we've got the latest games and, you know, the usual stuff. So there's a few holiday specials. Definitely
Oh, hang
Acquisitions
on.
Incorporated is worth doing. They're
Scroll
all
down
going to be
again.
fun. Say again, down?
To the cast of Acquisition. Oh no, hang on. Mike Krolik was part of the original cast as well, and was
Yeah,
easily the funniest guy as well
yeah,
on that.
yeah. They're you know they're good fun, and if you like actual plays, you know these are all well produced, and you know they're not quite as cheesy, I would say, as you know companies like Critical Role who do amazing content, and I think what they've done for the hobby is huge, not just with D&D, but actually just they are probably the big catalyst for this all happening, right? And for the normalization of role playing, I think, in the last couple of years. But they have a certain style which you can either love or hate, I guess. Um,
Yeah, if you haven't checked out Acquisitions Incorporated, you have to do it. They did like a whole heap of like stage shows with Chris Perkins as the dungeon master, and
yeah,
it's all just this like it's just all dick and fart jokes and beer and pretzel sort of role
yeah,
playing, and then you've got Chris Perkins at the front, who's obviously this like grandmaster
yeah,
storyteller, and it's amazing. Like you can tell he's such a good storyteller in the fact that everyone around the table is all just like ho ho ho, you know, I hit him in the dick sort of thing, you know. And then Chris just launches off on this, oh, you slash down on his dong, you know. it's just, you know, it's hilarious to watch that dichotomy of the two
yeah.
different sort of ways of playing the game, but they work so well. It's really funny.
That is quite funny. Speaking of D&D and fifth edition, a couple of months ago, it was announced that Renegade, and I will change our little branding over to Renegade. You can just about make that out there. Renegade had acquired the license to a whole load of Hasbro properties, coming back to Hasbro again, for 5th edition. So they had Power Rangers, I think, already, but they are putting out in 5th edition Transformers, which I'm actually actively excited about and will probably buy. G.I. Joe, My Little Pony. Is there another one? That might be it for now.
I'm most excited about the Power Rangers deck building game that they're planning on bringing out because I love deck building games,
I really
and
hate deck building games so much.
oh, I can't get enough of them. Just building that engine, making
Yeah.
things go fast. Deck builder goes burr. It's fantastic. And I can't wait for the GI Joe game because I mean, you've played with me, Phil. I'm a very like pop culture sort of heavy DM. All that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
and I just love the idea of just being able to role play walking away from an explosion in slow motion,
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. And that kind of plays to even though G.I. Joe's characters aren't superheroes, really they are. And I know
Yeah.
you're a big fan of that sort of superhero vibe, particularly if it's in a otherwise realistic-ish world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really excited about Transformers. I know a friend of the show, Doug, from Victory Condition Gaming, is really hyped about Transformers and G.I. Joe, and will probably actually break his kind of not literal but pseudo embargo on fifth edition the way I've got, and we'll probably get both of those as well. He's really excited. I think more so for Transformers, but certainly excited about both of them. And I've got a couple of friends who are really excited on Transformers as well. So I think that's going to happen next year, realistically, whenever they release it. I think there's going to be a few of us picking that up and making a complete mess of that, and destroying any love that we had for that brand.
I'm really interested to know how Transformers, like how the mechanics would work, like because it seems like
Yeah.
you would just like do a lot of pretending. It would be like an espionage sort of game. Because
Yeah, if you were actually to play it to the strengths of being able to transform, I mean, I guess there's two ways you can do it. One is the whole robots in disguise thing. Oh, look, I'm a toaster. What are you going to do for the next 3 rounds? Well, I'm going to wait here patiently for someone to put some bread in my head. I don't know.
and then pow.
Yeah, I'm going to toast it more than they ever expected.
Yeah, I'm gonna have it up. I'm gonna have my setting turned up to 9, and they won't even know it.
Exactly. And I guess you're going to end up needing effectively a double-sided character sheet.
Yeah, that'd be something.
And do you have to roll to transform? What's the likelihood? Because you never really see them fail to transform. So can
Yeah, I
you
was gonna
just
say
transform?
what goes wrong then. Yeah.
Yeah, you're trying to transform into a toaster, and you end up with only 2 slices instead of 4. I don't know.
You send up like a what are those like half horse half man things? I can't remember the name of the mythical beast, but I
Bruce.
imagine like a half robot, a half car sort of.
Yeah. I mean, that would be like, I don't know if you ever saw Robotech or Macross or anything like that, but they have they transform from robots to planes, and they've got a half stage, which they called, I think, Gear Walk, which is basically the top half is still a plane, and then it's got legs, and I think the idea is it just sort of scoots over the ground but can still shoot you. It just felt like a lazy transformation. It's like the manufacturers of the toy just went, hey, this kind of looks interesting, let's make this a thing.
Yeah.
It's just
They
like,
got halfway through transforming it, and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is also a mode."
Yeah. Look, it's a triple changer.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing-
exactly that.
Out of this announcement, the thing that I'm equally never sold as a toy.
The fact that it was mains pad.
It came with a free action fork.
Ooh.
The thing that I'm equally excited and also a little bit disappointed about is the Power Rangers role playing game. I'm excited because I love the idea of role playing as like giant I'd love the idea of like a one shot campaign. That's a
I know what you
like
mean.
a one
Yeah.
shot, right?
Yeah.
That starts as you being these like power robot ninjas that are fighting regular sized people, and it gradually escalates until you're decimating cities in your
Yeah.
bot that you're all trying to like fight in the same time. I loved that idea so much that I wrote my own one shot for that about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's set in the D&D universe, but it's at the end you end up all in this like X-Men style danger room where you have to do like different tasks in order to be able to power the giant stone golem that you're all in the belly of.
Yeah.
And you fight this blue dragon at the end. And that was what that whole like I worked back from that idea. I was like, I want to have this big
Yeah.
thing that it's gonna like beat everything up, and then I wrote a campaign around it or one shot around it. And so I'm disappointed that now the real franchise is gonna just do my
So
thing.
my question here is making the presumption that as Power Rangers, you five or four people in your party are the Power Rangers, right? And you've
Mm.
got your Zords or whatever that do their own thing. So there's you, then there's your vehicle, effectively your Zord, and then for the big climactic battle at the end, you're no longer in your Zord as it is, but you're all combined to form one giant robot. Now, at that point, is it the case that you all decide by consensus what that does, and then you all have different roles? Or should it be more that each of you gets to control the action of the limb that your your sword is? So you have
So
to roll to move the left leg.
that would that would be both hilarious and also take forever.
I know,
Um,
right? Can I
the,
walk over
the
that?
way
Okay.
the way that I did it was via consensus, and I had like a chart in the middle of the table,
Yeah.
and I had
How
like
big was this
different
table?
5 by 5. It was I had these different like powers that the robot could do, and you could choose if you chose the same power over again, you basically got upper level, and so you could do a really powerful like one of the things the robot could do, or you
Yeah.
could try and do a little bit of all the things it could do, sort of thing. So there was like this choice about do I want to do one really powerful shot or lots of not so powerful shots, and
Yeah.
that made for some really good like conversation around the table.
Awesome. Well, you're gonna just have to try and port this over to your new favorite 5e game, um, or pitch for Voltron under the 5e license. It's basically the same
Yeah.
thing. Um, yeah. So the other thing that happened with Renegade was that World of Darkness has been kind of taken back by the license holders. So World of Darkness is vampire and werewolf and mage and all that sort of stuff. My understanding is that the license holder for those games, which is Paradox Interactive, the video game company,
Oh,
um,
really?
yeah, they also used to own the license to Coriolis, which is one of my favorite games, a science fiction game that's now owned by Free League. There's a whole sort of story about what happened there with the licensing. But effectively, one of the guys who wrote Coriolis now works at Paradox. So I think it seemed like a sensible move when Yenring and the original publishers decided to close shop, but wanted some sort of control over that property. Anyway, the Vampire the Masquerade video games, I think, were originally produced with Paradox. And probably a few other things that were going on at the time as well. I know there's a whole load of mess with one of those games, but effectively Paradox has ownership of that now. So they have reacquired the rights to that, who I think were with Modiphius for a while. And they're going to do all the original games themselves. But the third-party stuff is also going to Renegade, which then brings the idea of Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition, which would just be awful.
Yeah, that's
Wouldn't happen.
you know
But I just thought it was
we've
really
already had enough in
interesting.
2020.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't really known much about Renegade. I knew that they'd done some things like, I think there's a card game in the Vampire um, license that they've produced. And they've got a lot of board games that they've done, but they haven't really done much in the RPG realm. And then in the last few months, yeah, they've just managed to snap up all these interesting agreements. I think it's pretty cool. Let's see here. Did you say about the Gale Force 9 Aliens board game?
Yeah, I watched the unboxing video.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's I mean pretty underwhelming, really. I mean, it seems. I mean, I don't know if we're spoiled for choice with games these days, but to me, it just kind of felt like a reskin of something like Zombicide, right? Like,
yeah, exactly
just
that.
another
A
one of
Space
those
Hulk
type
or
of
something.
games.
I
Yeah.
mean, what I do think is pretty good about it is if you are an artistic person, more artistic than I mean, I can paint something, but whether or not it's worth looking at afterwards is always open to debate. But if I just show this, so I mean it's a pretty nice looking. Actually, I'm just going to change that logo out. It's a pretty nice looking game in on the face of it. You get a whole bunch of minis which you can obviously paint up, and anything that has an expansion called Ultimate Badasses is probably fun. It's like £45, which is a really good price. But it does require you to have a little bit of patience because all the minis come unassembled. The game itself will take some time even to just get to a point where you can play it as a result of that. So if you're a Warhammer guy or girl, then it's probably right up your alley. It's probably quite a good Christmas present for someone who loves the license and also likes doing that sort of thing, as opposed to something like Nemesis, where actually you have to, you don't have to do any assembly, but it's a much bigger game and it's not actually a licensed Aliens property. It's just a complete rip-off, really.
Might be great for someone who is running the Alien RPG that came out last year.
Yeah, I've got that up here.
Because because I mean, I still run fantasy games using the Descent 2.0 minis. Like that was the best deal.
So good. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So if you've got a friend, relative, or someone who you want to really annoy with unassembled minis, and they happen to have the Alien RPG and they don't have any minis for it, and you know that they like using miniatures for role-playing games, then it's probably a good shout. And hopefully it will shut them up for a while because they'll be too busy gluing things together.
Or they'll spend a lot of time complaining about putting the minis together, and then you won't get any peace.
Yeah.
Roll a d20 on that one, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So I think for £45, it's pretty good. I won't be buying it. We should probably talk a little bit about Twilight 2000. I don't know how much you know about that license. It's an old
the war one, right?
Yeah. So I've never played it. I had the opportunity to play it relatively recently, but unfortunately I had other things going on, so I had to decline. It's set in World War III that never was. So it's kind of contemporary, but the world is sort of a bit different, and it's supposed to be pretty gritty. The alpha edition of the rules is now out to Kickstarter backers. I've had a look through it. I haven't read it fully yet. It does look really pretty. I would love to share some of the images of that, but I don't feel comfortable that we necessarily are allowed to do that. So I'm going to avoid doing that just to not annoy people who can't read that. Right, I'm not going to show that.
It says Free League, everyone.
Free League.
Free League.
It's going to be a great game if you like World War III type post-apocalyptic but super gritty and fairly realistic combat, and none of your kind of fantasy stuff or science fiction stuff that we've all gotten so used to over the last few years. Then it's probably a very good way to go.
How do you think it'll play against, like, because there's like that Operation.
Now, Operation's the game where
One.
you have the guy on the back and he's got the things. And
Great role playing game.
oh yeah, you're the doctor.
I'm thinking of Operation because Bruce's
Yes.
module in it was called Operation White Drop, right, or White Rabbit or something. But there's a system that is World War II. Have you ever played anything like that? I
never have.
That is, like, through a real period of time.
No, I never have actually. I've only ever really played. Yeah, pretty much fantasy. I think I have played the occasional thing that isn't really that fantasy, but may as well be. I mean, there've been games that I've played where the system is supposedly a fantasy system, but the game that was played actually was anything but.
Yeah.
But no, never anything quite like that. I'd be interested.
Yeah, because I just wonder how it would play. Like, because I've got to be honest, I'm not sure if I'd be all that interested in it. I tend with my RPGs, I tend to not really like to blur the lines between the real world and my role playing. Just because
you need to have a sort of fantasy break somewhere, otherwise there's just too much getting depressed over reality, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you can expect to be role playing things that I don't really want to role play. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So, yeah,
No, I completely agree with you. Um, but yeah, the alpha is out. I know there's been quite a lot of controversy about the some of the lore that has been created for the game. People arguing that in a fictional world, some of the lore may not be that realistic. You just fuck off, as far as I'm concerned. It's a
it's
game.
magic, right?
Exactly. If you don't like it,
It's-
then just
yeah,
tweak it to suit you. We're all
yeah,
adults, and you know, the only time when I've actually put my foot down and not bought something because of the way that they portrayed something in that regard was when Vampire the Masquerade came out, and I've actually got it on my shelf now. But when Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition came out, there was a lot of controversy about the way that they were portraying some world events and the sexuality and diversity and inclusion stuff, which was enough for me to say, hey, I don't want to do this. I don't want to give this my money. In retrospect, I think maybe that was a bit of an immature decision by me because actually I could just take it or leave it and treat it as a work of fiction. But at the same time, it did feel like it was normalizing normalizing prejudice, which I think we have to be very careful about now.
yeah.
And in fact, when we're playing and we'll come back to this more later, we're playing a Savage Worlds Deadlands Noir campaign right now, which we've just started, and I'm GMing, and that's really hard for me as a GM. I try really hard to be inclusive, and I have friends of basically every sexuality, gender, and people who are not of the gender that they were assigned at birth. And that's fine. I just love people to be who they are and actually embrace differences. I don't think that everyone is the same. I don't think we should all be treated the same. I think we should embrace the fact that everyone is different and actually, make that part of our lives and celebrate it. So in Deadlands Noir, when it's set in the 1930s in the Deep South in New Orleans where we are, and yes, there is a lot of acceptance because of that world. But at the same time, racism is still a thing, and what's the word I'm looking for? Sexism is also still a thing. Wanting to portray that a little bit accurately to give it a bit more grit, but at the same time make it clear that the players aren't permitted to be that way, and that it's not going to affect anyone in the game. It's something that you can observe from a distance. It's really tough.
If I'm honest, when I do that sort of stuff, I just leave it out. I just don't do it.
Yeah,
I really liked the way that that Dark Trails did its 1600 Wild West, where
yeah,
basically because of Cthulhu, slavery just didn't happen.
yeah. I love
You
that.
know what I mean? And then it just doesn't then it just doesn't have to be a problem because the thing
Yeah,
is that it's diversity and all that has to be a thing. We have to welcome everyone in, but
yeah.
no one wants to play such a horrible time in history.
Well,
We're
yeah.
all
No,
escaping,
no
right?
one, and
Like
certainly no
it's
one that you really want. No one that I want at my table has holds those views. I would hope. Let's put it that way.
no,
At
absolutely.
any table. And yeah, it's a really interesting time socially for gaming, and obviously this comes back to all the stuff that's happening at Wizards of the Coast as well. We're not going to go into it. It's all out there if you want to read it. Yeah, there's a social change, and it is coming through to our hobby, which is, I think, really good. But yeah, you're right. Twilight 2000 does potentially kind of push you towards an area that actually for a lot of people is going to be a no-go area.
It's like you
And
said though, we're all adults, and you can pick the games that you want to play, and you can pick the
mhm,
games that you don't, and you vote with your feet, right?
mhm.
So I don't think there's any real need for all of us to, you know, revolt against all that kind of stuff. Just don't buy the game and don't play
Yeah,
the game and don't play the game with people who play the game, right? It's
yeah.
it's
Or
as
yeah,
simple as that.
pick your party. Pick your party well. Um, but Twilight 2000 Alpha's out. It looks beautiful. I will have the book arriving when they publish it, and I'll play it, I'm sure, but I'll never run it. Part of the reason I bought it is because I pretty much buy anything Free League that's on a license that I'm even vaguely interested in, and I have some friends who are huge fans of the original game and who are likely to run it. So that's that one.
All right.
Another
Phew,
game
let's
that's
shake that off.
yeah.
Whew, okay, all right.
we
Fresh
need
start. Let's do this. Let's not
we
get
need
heavy this
Brendan
time.
here to
Yeah,
lift the
yeah,
spirits now.
yeah. Let's do
Brendan
it.
LaSalle. Dune.
Yeah.
Tell me everything you know about Dune. You have 5 seconds.
It is
Ah, well
a
done.
space. It's a it's a space opera, right?
Yeah.
Space opera with a cult following that had two amazing games in the 90s, and that's about as much as I know.
Yes. So I remember watching the Dune movie, the original. I want to say it's David Lynch that did it, with Carl McLachlan and Sting and other people. When I was pretty young, and I saw it on TV. When I should have been asleep. I've watched it again a few times, and it's an amazing film that doesn't hold up very well.
The whole franchise is kind of that way, right? Like, I don't think you
To an
find any
extent.
people who found Dune like in the modern time. It's like, oh, it's the most amazing thing ever. But they were around the time. I don't know. Maybe there's a drought of amazing literature at that time. But like a lot of people loved Dune, right? They really, really loved it. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
right. I mean,
Spice.
yeah, Spice, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we
But
call it Old
I
Spice
remember
now.
I remember trying to read the book a couple of times and just getting really confused with big words, although I was quite young. And then,
Yeah.
the movie was kind of the same sort of experience. So I started watching it. I'm like, what's even going on right now?
So I will tell you that there was a mini series. I think it was the Sci-Fi Channel that did it. It has William Hurt in it. There's actually, I mean, it's quite old now. I think it was like 2000 or so. So yeah, it was ages ago they made it, but that was pretty good.
All right.
I've got the audiobook from Audible, and it's a fully dramatized audiobook. It's something like 27 hours,
Right.
fully dramatized. So I mean, it's going to take you, at current, I'm going to only listen to my audiobook when I'm commuting to work, which is how I do my audiobooks. And it's going to take me about 30 years to listen to it again. But at the time when I was spending 4 hours a day in the car, we got through it relatively quickly. This was back in the day when cars didn't have MP3 players. So we burnt it onto like 20 CDs or 30 CDs or something. It was crazy.
Nice.
But that's really good. Gale Force 9, who we spoke about earlier, they re-released the board game last year, maybe the year before. It's basically the same
Dune
game as it
board
was
game.
before. Huh? The Dune board game, yeah.
The Dune board game, yeah.
The Dune board game, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The Dune board game. Yeah. Yeah. Board game. And it's been really popular, and it's a beautiful game. Modifius announced a while back that they're bringing it to their 2D20 system. Now, I've not played any 2D20 games. So you've got Conan, Star Trek Adventures, John Carter. I'm sure there are more, but I've not played any of them. So off the top of my head, I can't think what they are.
2D6 like
Infinity
the
is
fate
one of them.
the fate core sort of rules, right?
No, it's more super crunchy.
Oh right, really?
Yeah, I believe so. I've not played
Off
any
the
of
back
them.
of
So
2D6, or is that just the name of the
2D20s.
company? Oh,
2D20s.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
I've not played any of those games. Because it just looks like far too much like hard work to learn. And most of the interesting games that I want to play, if I'm ever going to play them, it's because I'm running them. So I don't have enough space in my tiny little brain for any more systems right now. That said, they've just released over the last few weeks some of the artwork for the new Dune game, and yeah, exactly. It's a beautiful game. It looks really good. The board game.
Yeah,
Dune
I mean,
board game.
I don't want to. I don't want to hate the franchise. It's not like I'm not accepting it. I just didn't understand it when I. You know
Yeah,
what I
so
mean?
I'm trying to remember it, but basically, from what I recall, it's been a while since I read it. So it was all about trade across the galaxy, right? And there are factions which are basically families. Or there are families which are basically factions, one way or the other. There's a thing called spice, which is essential for intergalactic travel. and you can only find it on one planet. So whoever controls that planet basically controls effectively the Empire. That's it in a completely blasphemous, totally wrong nutshell.
So it's Game of Thrones in space, basically.
Similar, I guess. I mean,
Right.
I think
You got different families,
potential
and
for
you've
it
got
is yeah,
King's Landing. You know?
right, exactly. I think actually it's got a lot more style than Game of Thrones in its own way. We've
Ooh,
got the new
shots
movie
fired.
coming out next year, I think. Denis Villeneuve is the director of that. He directed Blade Runner 2049, which I thought was awesome. In the meantime, Modiphius are putting out a role-playing game. The artist for that, I'm very, very excited by, is Bastien Lecouf d'Armes, who is the guy who did the artwork for Cult Divinity Lost. Really a big fan of that art. Some of it is a little bit visceral, but there's something about the way that he does his drawings. It's very fantasy oriented, but the human stuff is very anatomical and pretty dramatic. So I thought I'd share a couple of those pieces.
Yeah, let's do it. I don't
Let's
know
do
what
it.
to expect now. That's a crazy description.
Well, you just go, oh, is that it?
Is this going to be like art from the Renaissance? You know, like
Yeah, I mean it is very Renaissance-y. So that's the front cover.
oh wow, that's really nice. And
And
this is from the movie, right? Or the role playing
this
game?
this is from the role-playing
Oh,
game.
it says it right there on
It
on
does.
the
It says
picture.
it right here. Look,
It's funny what happens when you read things.
look there, right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. No, thanks
Yeah,
for pointing
if
that
I
out.
just make that wider again, then you can actually see it. So that's the
Wow,
cover.
that's really cool.
And then
That's the sandworms
that's the
that
sandworm. They're
that your audience
huge.
was talking about earlier, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that is it's a big old sandworm right there.
Yeah. And I butchered this image for the image on the cover of today's episode.
I mean, there's a lot to take in there. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, is this like a thing that's in the like if someone who knew the law would be like, oh, that's the thing
Yeah.
where they
So
do that thing, right?
this is a test where
Right.
basically the idea is that what's in the box is pain.
Right.
Just pain. It's the most intense pain that you'll ever feel.
Mm-hmm.
And the test is that if you withdraw your hand from the box, then she will kill you.
What with the chick with the needle?
Yep.
Right. So she's wow. Okay. Yeah.
So this is the
That's
Gom Jabbar. So
pretty
yeah.
brutal.
So effectively, whilst your hand is in the box, you're consumed by effectively the idea that your hand is being, peeled off with acid and
Mm-hmm.
all that sort of nasty, fun stuff.
Yeah. Paper
So
cuts between the fingers and stuff. Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
every impulse tells you to pull your hand out, but if you do, then she'll stab you on.
What if you keep it in? What do you win?
You win not dying.
Nice.
But this is basically the test to become effectively like a say like almost like a witch. So it's like a trial to become a sister in this order
Right.
to
Right.
prove that you are worthy, if you like.
Right.
So
They got good benefits then. Unlimited
yeah,
holiday.
they get
Yeah.
good
Beer
dental.
fridge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, free snacks. Yeah,
Nice.
coffee
Yeah. Bowl
machine.
of fruit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Sounds great.
We're supposed to get that where I work, and they still advertise it. It's amazing on like the job adverts and stuff. It's like benefits of working here include free fruit, free hot drinks, and free lunch on a Friday. And I'm like, well, technically that's a thing, but I haven't been to the office since January, so I'm
And you
still
still
waiting
had to
for
put your
someone
hand
to.
in the pain box.
Yeah, I'm still
You
waiting for
know,
them to
like
send me my peanut M&Ms every week, and it just doesn't happen.
yeah,
So
yeah.
unacceptable.
After putting your hand in the pain box, you still don't get all those things that you want.
Yeah. No, so exactly. I have Cult. I have three editions of Cult here. Three copies of the same core rulebook in different flavors. It's that nice. So
Nerd.
check that out.
Amazing. Is that so? This is set in the same universe?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. This
It
is
just looks free.
the reprint or the reimagining, shall I say, the reimagining of a game that came out in the late 80s, early 90s that I wanted to buy, and the guy at the game shop, who still works there now, Duncan at the Games Room in
What a
Norwich,
hero. Yeah.
declined to sell me Cult because I was 14 or something, and apparently it was a bit mature. Well, this game basically discusses anything and everything that you might find in, for example, Hellraiser, or
Right.
any kind of horror film, or thriller or anything like that. So it's not friendly.
It's dark. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very dark. I've been meaning to get it to the table for a really long time, but having the right party is a challenge because you don't
Yeah.
want to upset anyone.
If you ever get that to the table, I'd really like for you to not invite me to that. That'd
Yeah,
be
I
great.
figured that would be
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I'm going to invite you. You're going to be invite number one. We're going to
I'll
peel
be
you
the,
like an orange.
I'm a big scaredy cat. I don't want to. I don't want to
Thing
do
is,
that.
I can't watch horror films
Oh, really?
at all. Yeah, I won't watch horror films, but I'm okay with it in role playing.
You got to be in the driver's
Tournament.
seat.
I don't mind playing. It's just I don't like watching. I guess I'm a bit visual in terms of that. So,
Yeah.
so everyone who wants to get involved, if you want to invite Zach to your favorite slasher role playing game,
Yeah.
so he
Yeah.
can decline.
Yeah. My email is definitely not Zach@gmail.com.
I'm really sorry for anyone who's definitely not Zach who has that email
They're gonna
address.
get some weird stuff now. Yeah.
Went through a phase of every time I wanted to sign up to something, I would just put in bob@bob.bob. Hey Stu, how you doing, my friend? Yeah, Duncan at the Games Room is just a legend. I've forgotten what we're talking about now. Stu, you've put me off.
What about that? What about that Savage Worlds game we're playing?
Savage Worlds.
Didn't you want to? You wanted to chat about that?
Yeah, so we started playing Deadlands Noir. Zach's in the party
Yeah.
along with
See.
my other half, a couple of other friends. Hey, wise guy, huh? I'm really enjoying kind of stretching my legs, as it were. It's very different universe to what I'm used to. I've been GMing Symbaroum for about a year. I think I've put about 120 hours into that system now, which is effectively medieval fantasy. It's really interesting. The whole thing with Deadlands Noir is it's set in the 1930s. We said earlier, set in the 1930s. In this specific set of scenarios, we are in and around New Orleans, and the world is slightly different because they discovered in the Deadlands Weird West, which predates Noir, fossil fuel, if you like, called ghost rock, which is kind of a bit like a nuclear powery type ore that you can do awesome stuff with, but it also causes
My
nasty
understanding of it
things.
though is that it's got like some sort of like mystical property as well. Like
Yeah,
it's nuclear juice is based in some form of magic, right?
yeah, I think it's kind of corrupting, and there are other planes of existence, and it does the whole pseudo zombie thing as well. Certainly in Weird West. I've not played or run Weird West, and I've not played Noir before, so it's a real eye opener for me. As well as we're playing Savage Worlds, which I've not played before or run before. So Zach here has the massive benefits of the GM trying to learn the system as he goes along in Fantasy Grounds, which I've had the license for a year, and am now finally using because it seems like a good opportunity to not waste my money on that. But how are you finding it?
I'm finding it great because I can do what I want because you don't know the rules.
Yeah, then we try and press something and it doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for
No,
Zach,
no.
I know them better than that.
No, I think it's fantastic. I've never played, like, I'm so enamored by Savage Worlds. I've never played it before,
Right?
and there is both at the same time this amazing level of crunch, whilst also completely getting out of your way and letting you do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I
You can
don't
make
know
it as
how they've
narrative
achieved
as you
it.
like, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, you know how I play, and maybe your audience doesn't. But it's essentially I like to role play until a role comes along. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Same
I'll
here.
I'll do crazy things. I'll just be talking about things I'm going to do, and it's like, oh, that needs a role. Let's do it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not the sort of guy who's like looking over his sheet, like, oh, yeah, I can probably
Yeah.
use this skill.
Yeah. And that's exactly. This comes back to D&D to an extent. And um, I tend to think of you having two different kinds of role players. The kind of role player who role plays, who effectively is embodying a character and then is aware of what their character can do because of what's on their character sheet, but doesn't use their character sheet to determine what they're going to do. So if
Mm,
you know you're really, really bad at persuasion, then your character might not try unless
yeah.
they are desperate. So that will inform how you play that role.
Hmm.
But you're not kind of looking at your character sheet waiting for an opportunity to use that thing that's on your character sheet
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
doing anything
The,
else.
the numbers on the sheet inform how you bring the character to life. They don't bring the character to life for you.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly that.
Yeah.
Exactly that. And Savage Worlds is just it's kind of a breath of fresh air for me because the potential just for the system on its own is really cool. There are so
Mm.
many different settings available for it, and I don't think that much changes mechanically between them. So you
Yeah.
have to learn different lore, and there'll be different skills and magical powers and magical abilities, edges as they're called, and the like, depending on the setting, which are bolted onto the rule set. But effectively, if you know that rule set, and if you have a poly set of dice and a d6 that's a different color, you can pretty much do anything.
Yeah, what I really liked about the character creation in particular is so many systems just say, oh, make whatever character your heart desires, and you can be
Yeah.
anything in our system. And then what happens is you go, right, I want to be for instance, like the last character I rolled in 5e. It really sounds like I'm bashing 5e here, but I mean I
We're not
enjoy
bashing
playing this
5e, but
character,
we're enlightened.
but yeah, I'm just better than that.
Yeah,
No,
we've
no, I
evolved. No.
the thing is that, like, I had this idea for this character where I wanted to be a human, particularly because I feel like humans aren't necessarily weak in that system, but they're definitely not the most empowered race in the whole thing. And I liked the idea of having this, like, weak human that was enslaved by the god. I wanted a warlock. I wanted a human warlock,
Yeah.
right? But then I looked at the what I could build with a human warlock, and I was like, there is no point in me making a human warlock. Like, it would
No.
just be a completely gimped character.
Yeah, so
Whereas
you end up
with
basically making something completely different and then saying, well, it would be a warlock
yeah,
and building a
well, yeah,
sorcerer or something.
yeah, exactly. But with Savage Worlds, it says at the beginning, just imagine the character you want, and then you go through the rules and you pick the parts that support the character you want to build, and that's
Yeah.
amazing. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Now, so once you see your character as a real person and not as a set of numbers and abilities, that is when role playing becomes fun. Session zero helps a lot with that. Session zero is so important if you're doing a long campaign. Conversely, I love playing with pre-gens. A
Oh, I love
well
pregens.
played pre-gen I adore. And having a character that is there and that character, doesn't really make sense, but I know exactly what I mean. That character knows who they are and you just have to find them,
Hmm.
which you have with a well defined pre-gen.
Yeah.
Is great fun. So for example, uh, I'm a patron of the Sweden Rolls podcast. at the sort of top tier, and they are currently doing a Forbidden Lands like a private campaign, which does have patrons at that level. And I got my weeks muddled up, and I thought I had an extra 2 weeks before I needed to have a character for it. So Andreas just said, "Hey, well, I've got these pre-gens. Just take one of these if you like, and then if you want, you can create a character later on, and we all work it out." But the character he's given me is just awesome. I don't need anything else because he's just really, really cool. And I think when you've got a good pre-gen, it almost doesn't matter what they are, because if it's something you wouldn't have chosen, you can just embody it. Likewise, actually, the funnel system in DCC I really love, which is where you end up almost definitely with the character you didn't want. So
It's always the one with one hit point,
yeah.
right?
Do you want to describe how that works, the funnel system?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, this is what I was going to say was that the thing I don't like about session zeros is that character creation is rarely the most interesting part of the game. You know, everyone like comes into the hobby thinking, "Oh, I'm going to make this amazing character, and then I'm going to play them through all these swashbuckling adventures." And you know, yeah, sure, you can do that, but you'll end up with a night of just crunching numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's if you've got an elegant system. Otherwise, it can take you several weeks if it's something like Traveller.
Yeah, yeah,
And you go through this life path thing, and then the character dies halfway through character generation. You have to do it all over again.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the thing. That's what I don't like about those sorts of things. And that's what I liked about Savage Worlds was I cared about the character from the beginning because it was my idea and I was just bringing it to life. You know what I mean? Rather than trying to find numbers that fit. But the thing with DCC, and that's probably my favorite character creation with DCC, you get everything entirely randomly rolled for you, and you get 4 characters. And what I described to people who are new to DCC, you know, in D&D, you start out as like the local football quarterback. You know what I mean? Like you might not be known across all the world, but you know the people in your local area might know you as a really tough person, or you know they might know you as someone who is a recluse who does magic, sort of thing. In DCC you start with these 4 characters and they're all just dudes.
But this is what I hate about Dungeons and Dragons specifically. People, and it happens in other systems, but over and over again I see people in 5th edition saying, "Oh, my effectively level 0 character who is 19 years old, well, you know, he fought in the Great War of Jazak Khan, and he's got this mighty sword, and his family were all killed, and then he had to fight his way through the forest and made it single-handedly without even leveling up once." Really?
I mean, everyone wants to be a hero, and not everyone loves DCC for that reason as well. Like the 5e group that I am playing in now, I was originally running DCC for. They were all 5e people, and I was like, "Why don't we try DCC?" And they hated it because they just felt powerless the whole time. And
Well,
you know,
you
there
just
is
need
a
to
certain
stick at
amount.
it and try not to die, right?
Yeah, but there is a certain amount of escapism in gaming, right? And people just want to be a hero, right? So, but I love DCC anyway. So the thing is that so you could start with these like 4 just dude characters, and you play through what's called a funnel, and the funnel is essentially designed as a character grinder. Like it's there to kill characters. And by the time you get out of the end of the you with your 4 level 0 characters, whoever is alive at the end goes up to be a level 1 character, but they're not your high school quarterback. They're just a regular dude who's seen shit.
Yeah, literally, because they were a shit shoveler.
Yeah,
Because you get your occupations given to you during that character generation as well. And I think it's really important, no matter what game you're playing, to understand that when your character has got no XP whatsoever, when they are slightly above average, and I don't think this applies so much in Savage Worlds, because Savage Worlds you're already wildcard, so you're already labelled as better than normal. But any role-playing game where basically when you start you're effectively not much more than a normal person, you haven't got a backstory other than you were just a couple of days ago you were a normal person. So your adventurer backstory is your first few scenarios. And if you're playing a campaign long term, for me that is how you define it. It's not long before you go, "Oh well, I think my character, you know, they lost their parents. Yes, okay, fine. but that's the thing you're holding on to more than these trials and tribulations that they managed to survive through without any XP to then join the party as, but session one.
Yeah, and the thing I don't like about, I mean, it's very popular in the 5e culture to have like this elaborate backstory behind your character.
Yeah,
And the thing I don't
my
like about it
characters
is
in
first,
5e have got that as well to an extent.
yeah, I mean, the thing I don't like about that is that at your sessions, at your session one, you effectively have to read, four masturbatory, self congratulatory
Yeah,
backstories about these characters that you're playing with, that I really don't care about, and I don't really care to read them all that much, to write
yeah,
them all that much either. Whenever I write backstories for 5e, it's like two or three paragraphs. It's like, yeah, I was, my parents died in a fire. This is it's really sad. Now
yeah,
let's get to the adventure.
yeah, exactly.
And that's what I like about DCC is your backstory is you playing the game through the adventure. So your funnel, you'll go through a few sessions in a campaign, and you'll be like, oh, I remember that time when we almost died from
Yeah,
that worm eating us. And
exactly.
that's the cool bit.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And it's very uncommon. It does happen, but it's uncommon that when you're playing, at least in a short campaign, that actually what your character's backstory that you wrote is can even be injected into what the DM is doing
Yeah.
without it feeling forced. So if your DM can do that, then great. And there are plenty of amazing DMs out there, but usually you kind of push for time in the first place.
Yeah.
So you have to be really committed to a grand story arc for that. And I guess that's more happening now than ever. Savage Worlds made an announcement on Thanksgiving that they had entered a licensing agreement for a new property to come to the Savage Worlds universe, and that was kind of interesting. Pathfinder for Savage Worlds.
All right.
Now,
It's
I've
exactly
never
what
played
Pathfinder needed.
Pathfinder. Huh?
It's exactly what Pathfinder needed.
Well, I've never played Pathfinder. I've been interested in it for a while. What I think is really interesting, we discussed this a little bit on the Friday fill-in on the Victory Condition Gaming with Doug on Friday, I think, is that Pathfinder have only just launched second edition, like in
Hmm.
the last couple of months or so. So it's kind of interesting that they've also kind of made, well, it feels like they've made this statement almost that they still think it's too complicated.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, right, is that I think what a lot of people go to Pathfinder for is exactly that crunch, right? But
Yeah,
I just think that Savage Worlds it has a chance of doing it better. From my limited experience with Savage Worlds, I feel like you're still going to get that really sort of varied and interesting, like all the different mechanics playing off each other and all that kind of stuff. But it's not
yeah,
going to be like flipping to your index 1,000 times in a battle, like it's you roll the dice, see what happens, sort of thing.
yeah, 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 absolutely. I totally agree with you. So that was quite interesting. Deadlands Weird West, which was on Kickstarter about a year ago now, should come out beginning of next year. There's a Kickstarter running right now for their first real big scenario, if you like, for that, or mini campaign, which is a reissue of Blood Drive. Blood Drive is um, it's a setting that was in the old version of Deadlands, where you start off as just cowboys doing a cattle drive across the US, and I guess zombie things happen and people die and all that sort of stuff. So that's on Kickstarter now. It's going to end pretty soon, but that looks like fun. So certainly, I think at some point after Deadlands Mar ends, we might looking at Weird West. One of the other guys in the party might run that for our home group. Um,
I'll tell you what else is on Kickstarter. I think it's just finished actually, so it's a bit of a disappointment. But the I backed it was
you
there's a
disappointed me.
campaign. There's a setting called New Bristol, which is a
Yes,
superhero themed Savage
yes.
Worlds adventure like
Did that
thing
succeed
like
in the
setting.
end? Because it was when I looked, it wasn't doing terribly well. But
I think it just made it over the line.
cool.
Uh, Yep, it has. Yeah, it did actually go through. So, but that's being fulfilled by Drive Through RPG. So,
Right.
with the Kickstarters that are generally fulfilled by Drive Through RPG, you can expect to be able to pick that up fairly soon after the actual,
Yeah.
Kickstarter thing is dropped. So,
Yeah. And I don't
yeah.
know if Darth Stu is still with us, but his game with Dave Chapman is still on Kickstarter. That's Wild RPG, and it is
Mhm.
wild. Tarot-driven RPG where you are
Wow.
jumping into the dreams of other people.
Oh, that's
It's
spicy. I
something.
like
It's
that.
Inception and a TV show called Reverie and a few other things. It's really beautiful. PDF level, if you're impoverished, starts at $5, £5 probably. I'm just used to saying dollars these days. Um, the funding level, I'm going to have a look actually. When I last looked at it, it was £70 off of the 4.5 grand target, which then gives you a tarot deck, printed tarot deck, if you're at
Oof.
the £50 pledge level. So it's one £50 pledge away from that level. And for fifty
I
pounds,
love
you
Smitty
get the
gimmick.
deluxe copy of the Wild Training Simulation, which is the game. But there's also a print copy of the custom tarot deck that they've had or are having designed. And yeah, you don't roll dice; you just have a tarot deck. So, and you use that tarot deck also for character creation. It's really smart, and the style is really cool. The artwork inside is all based off like Rorschach tests and stuff like that.
Rorschach
So
test. Yeah.
yeah, Rorschach, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice. Buy it, then it'll be
Yeah.
over that level.
I'm serious. I might. You're gonna need to send me that link. That sounds
Yeah.
amazing.
See, yeah, look. There we go. Amazing, huh?
Oh, there you go.
So I interviewed those
Yeah.
guys last week. Um, well, week before. I've lost track of time now. Our friends over at the Effect Podcast interviewed them today. I caught a bit of that, and the background for Stu had changed, which I found entertaining. He's put a
What
screen
I
up.
love what I love about the idea of role playing in people's dreams is that you can make an RPG to suit yourself. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you could have dreams set in like any sort of universe. You could
Yep.
you could have a dream. What was that one with Jennifer Lopez in the 90s or the early noughties where she'd go into the dreams of a serial killer. It was horrific, but that might be down your
Was that the Cell?
your street.
I can't think.
It
No.
might have been the
I
cell. Yeah, yeah.
I don't watch horror films. Don't forget, apart from Event Horizon, which gets a pass.
Uh huh. Uh-huh.
But I don't really watch horror films. But I do like psychological thrillers, I guess.
You might get some
Stu's
inspiration.
watching. He might know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like the idea of, and that's what I said in my interview with these guys, is that if you planned ahead and if you knew as a GM what you were going to do, you could probably get a tarot deck which actually resembles what you're expecting to be in the dream. And then the
Oh,
art on that deck could inform how the deck plays out if you've got imaginative players. So, okay, I mean, I had a tarot deck which was based on like druidic shapeshifting, and so like people as turning into leopards and stags and that sort of stuff. There you go, the sale. Thank you, Bruce.
yeah.
Um, and the idea that actually this tarot deck could be informing this weird, wild, druidic shapeshifting, anthropomorphism dream could be really awesome.
If
Yeah,
you made
I've
sorry,
not seen. I remember this being out this one, but I never saw it.
yeah, I haven't heard of that one. I'm afraid. The if you made a campaign in this system that centered around that finished where like not a big bad evil guy, but like some important artifact towards the last third of the campaign
Yeah,
was the tarot deck that you've been playing with all along. Oh, I would flip my shit. That would
it
be
would be
so
amazing,
good.
wouldn't it? It would
Like
be.
having played with the physical thing all the way through, and then it's like, oh, this is the thing.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Well, you're gonna have to. You're gonna have to do it.
Well, I've already spoiled it now, haven't I?
Yeah. Well, that's all
Yeah.
right. I've see now that I'm over 40, my memory is shot, so it's fine. Give it a week.
Could run the same one shot for you every couple of weeks, and you'd be happy.
I'd be sold. That'd be awesome. The last thing that I was going to talk about, and I'm aware that we're getting on a bit, and I'll I'll be completely honest. I'm also aware that we have shopping that's going to arrive at any point now, so I'm going to have to wrap up pretty quickly. But I did think that this was kind of interesting, and thought we should maybe just discuss this very quickly. So, Chamber is a game by the guy who designed Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark is one of the most disappointing games I've ever played, but most people love it.
All right.
Yeah. But it's not the fault of the game, really. It's just the game is so open-ended in how you can play it, and it's a different system to this, that you don't ever feel confident unless you've got a GM that's been playing it for a while. You don't necessarily feel confident that you're doing it right. But I like this description. The year is 1968. 2 years ago, on January 7th, 1966, an alien energy known as the Signal reached the Earth, spread through telecommunication systems, affecting people and technology around the globe. Its existence is not publicly known, though its strange effects have been widely reported. You work for Chamber, a secret agency tasked with capturing or destroying signal-resonant materials, objects imbued with the signal, as well as containing transmission and dealing with people harmed by it.
That
Uses the
sounds
Paragon
amazing.
system.
But I think you need the right people around the table to play this.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Because I've played Paranoia a couple of times,
Yeah.
right? And you play with the wrong table, and they think the objective is to kill the computer, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you don't get it. You don't get to kill the computer, right?
Yeah.
Like, you are living in this world, and you get to do adventures in this world, but
Yeah.
you don't get to change it, right?
No, you can never get there.
Yeah.
You can never get there. And we played Paranoia fairly recently, actually. And yeah, basically, that's your life.
Yeah.
But
You are no
deal
hero,
with it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
This seems like the same sort of thing. I can imagine you get the wrong table, and you end up with people who want to find out what the signal is. It's like, no,
yeah.
I haven't
mean,
thought about
maybe you
what the
can.
signal is. Just stop.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you can find out what it is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not actually detailed.
Yeah.
But the art is really pretty. It looks like it's out already. I would want this as a hard copy. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if it's available as a hard copy. It's on itch, so probably not at this time.
But that said, with the right table, this would be amazing. I'm
How
just
large
saying,
would
you
this
just,
table be?
5x5. The no, you get the right people around the table, and who are willing to just exist in the world and have fun doing that. That would be an amazing game. Yeah.
Exactly. So wait for it to come out in a physical media, because the Blades in the Dark book, for example, which is here, is super pretty.
That's pretty nice. Yeah.
I don't think I can competently show the interior particularly from here.
The glossy pages. Yeah, they look glossy.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, the lighting kind of ruins it a little bit, but I mean, it's wrong way. There we go. It's a lovely book.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lore, but it's so rules light that it takes it too far for me, or not far enough for me. And it's quite ritualized as well. It's based on Powered by the Apocalypse, and spends a lot of time doing downtime. And yeah, I think we just, as a group, we never quite cracked it. And the GM never quite felt 100% confident. But that's no fault to him, because I've got the book as well, and I couldn't work out exactly if we were doing it right. I think it's one of those games where if you have one person who has learned it properly from that one person who's learned it properly from that one person, so there's like that, almost like that oral tradition kind of thing going on, then it's probably an amazing game. But I think if you just try and pick it up and learn it from the book, it's a little more difficult. But this is a different system, so I'm going to shut the fuck up. Paragon is a completely different system. The game was called what? Do you remember? Chamber.
Aegon.
Chamber.
Sure. I
Aegon
thought it said
RPG.
there. Yeah, Aegon, and it's like
Oh, hang on.
it's like this fun
Aegon.
thing. Paragon.
What the fuck? Hang on. Chamber is the playset for the Paragon system for the Aegon role playing game. Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
Yeah.
They're just making
Well,
that
anyway,
overly
that was cool.
complicated.
So it's a download now, so I could get the PDF now, right, and have a read through.
You could, but first you should buy Wild.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Yeah.
I've got a list. I've got a to-do list from this.
You're gonna check it
stream.
twice,
I'm
and
so,
then we'll find out
so
just how good you've been.
I'm so glad I came on. It hasn't cost me. It only cost me 40 or 50 quid worth of Kickstarters. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we'll add sales tax and delivery to that as well. Did you buy anything on Black Friday? Or have you been restrained?
I bought some more Alexas. I've got.
Really?
I've now got an Alexa in every room that isn't a corridor or a toilet. So
That's impressive.
But,
We've got two, but our house is really small, and sometimes when you ask, that device, I'm not going to say it now because something will happen. When you ask that device to do something like turn on the lights or whatever, the one that is in the room that you're in won't pick it up, but the one in the other room will. And then that one will respond with, I can't find the hall light or something.
it's pretty annoying.
Yeah.
In terms of like gaming shopping, I'm gonna get the I'm gonna get the Savage Worlds core rule book for Christmas. I'm really looking forward to picking that up and having a read. Yeah, that one. That's the one.
Yeah.
And
do you know what setting you'll get?
I don't know. Is it? Yeah, no, I don't. Well, I've got the superheroes one on the Kickstarter that's going to be coming through. I'm really looking forward to that. New Bristol, I think it was called.
Yeah.
And
Nice pair of Bristols.
I mean, it kind of counts as gaming. I just recently got the Ready Player 2 on audiobook because I really enjoyed the first one. And,
I hadn't considered doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Will
Wheaton reads it.
Ernest Cline. Oh, really?
Yeah. He reads both
he did
of
the
them.
first one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell you what
And
else
he's
I've
so
got.
good. He's so funny.
There's a book that I've got on Audible I haven't listened to yet. It's called Red Shirts. My boss recommended it to me. And Red Shirts is the idea that your 0th level plebs on your starship have cottoned on to the fact that whenever a 0th level pleb goes on an away mission, they always die.
Yeah.
And so they're like, from what I'm told, they're basically trying really hard not to end up on an away mission because they know that they'll die if they do.
Yeah. Well, there's a series of, but if you're into that sort of like the sort of the aware sort of humor, there's also Critical Failures by Robert Bevan.
Oh, I don't know
I've got
that.
the audio book of that as well. It's a series of books, and I've only got the first one, and I'm only about halfway through it. But essentially, some normies in the 80s and 90s decided they want to play a role-playing game, so they get this dungeon master to come in who's like doing all the voices and all that kind of stuff, and then dungeon master then sucks them into his world.
Nice.
Because because they start making fun of him, and so he sucks them into, and then they become their characters, and it's all about them then going through the world.
That's pretty fun. So I will end this on a recommendation then, as we're close to time. Everybody loves, and I think you'll agree here, Everybody Loves Large Chests is a series of books on Audible and also on Kindle. And the premise is that a mimic, which is a chest that eats people, somehow by some clerical error of some description, pun not intended, manages to gain XP and level up. And by leveling up, then actually starts the process of getting new skills and abilities and attributes and taking on classes and all that sort of stuff. Really, really good.
Amazing.
Not for kids in any way.
Right.
And yeah, on Amazon, Audible, on Kindle as an electronic. I don't think there's a print version, but definitely recommended. Morningwood is the name of the first book. Morningwood, Everybody Loves Large Chests, or Everyone Loves Large Chests. Check it out. So
Great.
it's been 1 hour and 39 minutes and 49 seconds now. Some good
Very
time to
precise.
bring it to a close, I think.
Great.
So thank you, everyone, for tuning in and staying with us. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you to everyone who's been here. So we're looking at Super Beast, Paul, Cat, Nasser, Sanjuro, and we also had Stu, Darth Stu. If I've missed your name off, I apologise. We will be back at some point, probably within. I will certainly be back in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, Zach will join as well. We may see Paul again too. In the meantime, as good said, thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the show, please hit all the subscribe and the like and the follow and all that sort of stuff, because that helps us to prove that we're not just wasting our time.
I think you got to say, if you say that, you legally have to say boy.
Oh, I've
Yeah.
subcontracted that to the Australian. So
Peace.
yeah,
Like and
exactly.
subscribe now.
Yeah, I should record that. That would be. I probably. I can now. I can just go back in and you'll
There
be
you go.
forever immortalized. That's
Fantastic.
going to be the new
Can't wait.
outro every time. But again, thank you so much for your time. See you again very soon, and I hope your dice rolls are way better than mine. Take care. Ciao.